Good evening. I I hope that people that I was able to um, convey the message that I was going live now, and that I hope that people would join me and help give me justice and peace, and more importantly, um, give President Biden the courage to, and I think he's a great president to announce that he's going to keep the made to my question and hour on January 22nd, 2020, when I was volunteering there at the campaign's request for approximately 30 days. And I volunteered because I knew he was the only person that could beat Trump. But more importantly, I knew that he was that had to be a Democrat that was going to help me to achieve my divine purpose. God created all of us with a purpose. And I found out early through my discrimination that started with my mother being fired from a tobacco farm in Quincy, Florida, when I was 8 years old. I was either 13, no, I wasn't 13. I was born in 54, and if I was 8, that would make me 12. She left at 8 when I was 8, and I was born in 54. Oh, that would just give me the year, not so she in 62, or 63. I was 8 or 9, and it was a traumatic experience because her relatives um, told her that they weren't going to keep us, but she didn't have a choice. She couldn't find a job in Quincy, Florida, um, after Mr. Carter fired her. So she took my brother with her, the youngest child at the time, and she left three of us. And she had made arrangement with people. And I would later find out that the people who were supposed to pick us up or take care of us didn't. So much to um, keep all three of us. And in a ninth grade civics class, after I transferred to quote unquote the white school, Lake Wells Junior High School, after we had moved there, after my mom came back, I learned about the 13th and the 14th Amendments and the due process and equal protection. And I realized then that my life could be different than my mother's, that I could achieve my dream, her dream for me, us to graduate from high school, but also my dream for myself to graduate from college. I started working with New York State Department of Correctional Services as an officer. I was making quite a bit. 31,000 was what I think the starting salary was. It probably was a little less than that, but and I had a semester to complete my bachelor's degree, and I requested leave from Albion Correctional Facility to do that. And when they refused, change shift from day shift to night shift, and graduated. And then from that, I came out of uniform. Once I had my bachelor's, I was eligible to take civil service positions, exams that required a BS degree. And I left out of uniform and became a supervisor of inmate grievance program. And when I went back to an officer, I was in that position for 2.5 years. While I was getting a divorce, I went back to an officer position. And I realized now that part of the discrimination I experienced was because when the supervisor inmate grievance position became available, a white female was in position, And when I was interviewed and hired for it, the people that she didn't pass the exam, so they were Black, even though the previous two inmate grievance supervisors were Black females at Albion Correctional Facility because they were qualified, available. They were able to go into that position, and then they actually went to hire civilian hire civilian roles after that. So when I went back to the officer position, I experienced unbelievable discrimination. One of the things that happened, and I put up on Twitter, is I was out on because I was experiencing discrimination from a sergeant. So I was out of work for, I think I was out about 6 months at that time. And when they sent me to their state hired psychiatrist, he informed them that that I was suffered major depression. I was out for depression, but that I had a reoccurrence because of being escorted out of the prison. Never, I would never allow to or able to go back after that, and um, and I also had suffered 3 work-related injuries as an officer. So I applied for disability retirement since they wouldn't let me come back to work, and they denied that also. So I am seeking a voice for my book, and it has all the evidence uploaded in it as pictures. And I was able to, like, say, write it because I, kept documents, and it was it's been like 26 after they escorted me out of the prison, I filed a lawsuit against them. And first I had an attorney that was interested in it, but once the defendants lied about their explanations, and I got a no probable cause ruling from a state agency, the New York State Division of Human Rights, I couldn't get an attorney to take the case. So I appealed the case all the way to the Supreme Court. And my case had merit because Justice Ginsburg, who's a darling to a lot of liberals, Justice, I sent her a petition for an extension to file my case with the Supreme Court. And based on the evidence that I presented to her, including citing one of her cases that she submitted a case that she submitted a dissenting opinion on, Sanderson versus Reeves. And in that case, she stated that once a plaintiff, in that case that would be me, submitted evidence that proved that the defendant's explanation for their actions were lies or false, then a jury, not a judge, should decide those cases. And so my case, the defendants, New York State Department of Correctional Services and Civil Service, represented by New York State Attorney General, Elliot Spitzer at the time, every single declaration that they filed, and they filed declarations from 6 or 7 New York State employees, contained lies. And I had direct evidence that they were lying. And since that time, the same guy, Assistant Attorney General Mike Russo, I was one of the first cases that he got when he came on um, to the Attorney General's office. He lied in his declaration, and he not only lied in his, but he faxed perjured declarations for New York State employees to sign, and those people signed those declarations. And so, and the evidence, which I realized like after the case was over, years later, you can see the fax number where he faxed the declarations to them, and they signed those declarations. So that in itself, those people committed a crime, subordination, and he subordinated perjury by sending them those declarations. Unfortunately, my only hope now is for restorative justice. And even though I was technically on the books for 12 and a half years with New York State Department of Correctional Services, when they figured out my retirement, when I was finally of age to get retirement, they gave me like 9 years. So I didn't have 10 years. So I get $349 a month for retirement for New York State Corrections. And that in itself is an insult. I don't know how they did the math as far as like only giving me 9 years. When I started working in 1986, and I was terminated in 1998. And they couldn't even get the date right that they terminated. Not that they couldn't, they lied about even the date that they terminated me. I was terminated at the end of business on November the 2nd, 1998. But they put in their declarations where they lied in that I was terminated December the 7th, 1998. And they did that because to try and cover their actions. But even if you can't even get the date that you terminated somebody, or not you can't, but you lie about that, then you should be held accountable for it. And it's not just for me. I have been on this quest, and when I was working for Hillary Clinton in North Carolina, I informed her staff. They recorded me, telling them that, okay, if you do this, you will show African Americans that you believe in equality and justice. You will become the president, and you can amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 again to, just like President Obama did for Ledbetter. In Ledbetter case, she found out when she was retiring that she had been getting less money than the males doing the same job. And even though she didn't even file a employment discrimination lawsuit, President Obama amended the Civil Rights Act in Congress, of course. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, again, Title VII for her, and the act is called the Ledbetter Act, so that whenever a person finds out that they have suffered that type of discrimination at work, as far as it relates to salary, that they can still get judiciary action, that they can still be made whole for that time. But in my case, I'm a Black female, and I understand President Obama couldn't do it because he had no idea that Republicans had decided that they were going to vote no on everything while he was president. And but Joe Biden, and right now, because Joe Biden doesn't have doesn't control the Senate and the House, it would be hard for him to amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 now. So my hope and my prayer is that Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York State, as a Democrat, and with a Democratic body legislature. I don't know if their House and I don't know if they're called Senate and the House in the state of New York too. But since they're both controlled by Democrats, both chambers, that she could pass, they could pass a bill to give me retroactive disability retirement, and or she can use an executive order to achieve the same thing. And I hope that anyone who's listening, and I did put some celebrities in my tweet, if you can just read the book. Just read the book. That's all I'm asking. Just read it and give me peace and justice. I joined a family that I and I'm not, thank you, Jesus. My beloved son, William Keith Booker, a retired police officer, and I wouldn't let him play football in high school, or we wouldn't let him play football in high school, my ex-husband and I, and he joined the Marines, and he was an MP in the Marines, equivalent of an MP in the Marines for 4 years. And he was murdered 1 month and 1 day after his 50th birthday in Rochester, New York. And I had been diagnosed with cancer before shortly, maybe about 3 months before his death. And I had cancer surgery in October. He was murdered in September. And I had cancer surgery in October. And I am praising God that I'm cancer free. I didn't need any additional treatment or anything. It was called early. And I just want to live my life, to the best of my ability now. And I just need, if you have kids, if they're doing what they're doing now, we need, and Black people need a a moment just to rejoice, just to be people, just to be happy with all that's going on. And so help me and help us. Thanks.